Hello, my friends. My name is Pedro Candeias. I'm the founder of Karate Science Academy. That is a project that builds bridges between the best available evidence about training methodology, okay, and all the karate coaches and athletes and students from all over the world. So here we are for our 17th open lesson on Karate Science Academy's YouTube. And today I'm going to dedicate this lesson trying to explain how can we organize the sequence of several skills that we must develop in karate in the same training session, because many times we are obligated to mix some skills in the same lesson, in the same training session, or an athlete that really has more hours to train along the day, 3, 4, 5 hours a day to dedicate to karate practice. How can we establish the priorities? What should we put first? What should we put in the last part of the training session or the training day? And that's what I'm going to answer. The main question of this lesson is about the relationship between speed and technical training, but I'm going to give you some more examples about that so I can help you in about half an hour to better manage the several skills inside the training sessions you have for athletes or non-athletes, because even those karatekas that just go to your dojo for twice a week, 3 times per week, if we can manage the several skills in a way that don't affect each other negatively, we can take more advantage and make more and optimize each training session, even with karatekas that don't dedicate that much time to our art, to our sport. Okay, so let's go, my friends. So here I am with my webcam, my word sheet, and some notes that I made so I don't forget anything that I consider important to share with you. So before answering the main question, if you should train technique or speed first, and give some other examples about the way you can mix and organize the several training sessions. Let's try to understand some principles, because we can only be autonomous coaches if we really understand the principles, the foundations. So we don't have to be just copycats that just go to the internet and grab some ideas, or just try to reproduce some champion training program with our students, our athletes, because everyone has different needs, different levels of training, different ambitions, different time, to practice, to dedicate to karate. So if we understand the principles, the how things work, it's easier to adapt the training programs to our karatekas. Okay, it's just like building, developing a toolbox. Okay, where we are going to add more and more tools, learn how to use each one of those tools, and then we choose the correct tools to each situation. Okay, it's just like that. Okay, so let's understand one thing. Every skill that is more dependent on the neural or nervous components of our performance need to become first, then, for example, more muscular or metabolic components of performance. Okay, why? Because fatigue installs first in the neural and nervous components, and because when we want to develop some skills as speed or power that are really dependent on the activation rate, for example, of our motor units, that is the set between an alpha motor neuron that will innerve and stimulate a certain group of muscle fibers, for example. We have to train to perform each repetition without fatigue. That's the way we develop our maximal speed or maximal power in terms of performance. Please don't confound developing maximal power or speed capacity with the ability of keeping high levels or enough levels of speed or power when we are already tired. For example, if I identify that a karateka of mine, kata, kumite, doesn't matter, it's not fast enough making the kata displacement or the gyakuzuki or etc. Even when the karateka is fresh, without fatigue, he tries to perform his maximum speed, and we identify that is not enough for the next competition, for the opponents he or she is going to meet, okay? And there we are going to try to develop their maximum and maximum speed or power performance, okay? Trying to make them faster, even without fatigue, their best performance, okay? Another thing, a different thing, is trying to make them keep fast enough, even if it's not their best, fast enough to score a point in kumite, to have a good athletic performance in kata, to knock out an opponent in karate combat or MMA or kyokushinkai or whatever. That's more of endurance training, okay, and not maximum speed or power development. And many times we confound both things. They are different. They have different goals. They both are important, but we must try to categorize them so we can split and use the correct methodology to make the most out of each one of them. Okay, so this is the first principle. And then we have also the cognitive component, okay, where we are talking about, for example, reaction and the decision making, for example, in a fight, in kumite. Or, for example, we are also talking about learning or improvement of technical skills, okay? That will demand coordination, being focused, so we can learn, for example, a new kata, a new tactic, a more complex movement that our karatekas don't master as much. So we have the cognitive component. So let's see. This is one of our main parts of the lesson. Understand this, okay? So based on this, we can, for example, identify 3 levels of priorities, okay? Let's call it like this. So in the neural component or the nervous component of training, of performance in karate, we have, for example, speed, okay? Maximum speed. Let's put here also power, okay? We are talking about reaction speed, being faster in our reaction, not being able to keep a good reaction speed for a longer period of time. That's endurance. It's important, but that's not in the nervous component. It's like an endurance training for our focus, our decision-making, our physical performance, etc. Reaction speed, we can also put here the maximal strength, okay, performance, and we can make here, for example, learning new technical skills, technical or tactical skills, okay? When I talk about technical skills, I'm also including kata, for example, okay? So this is like the first level. In general, if I want to decide what to train first in the same training session or day, I would choose for this from these 3 levels of priorities. Then we have a kind of level 2, where I'm going to put, for example, hypertrophy. Okay, I'm going to put, for example, technical improvement. That's not the same thing as learning a new skill. Is something that I already know, I already memorized, but I have to perfection, okay, to improve. And then in the level 3, we will put everything that is related to endurance, okay? We can put basic and specific endurance. We can put endurance strength, for example. Okay, let's talk about these types of skills. We could talk about flexibility, for example, etc. But let's stick into this. So please, these are like the 3 levels of priorities, generically speaking, because there are some specific situations where I can manage this in a different way. But generically, it's what we are going to base on if we don't have any other information, okay? Neural, nervous, and cognitive component when learning are included in the level 1. Level 2, hypertrophy, technical and tactical improvement, okay? Where I need to be fresh, but it's easier to make an, or not, okay? That's what I'm going to talk about now. Okay, so let's get here my sticky notes so we can play. Oh, okay, let's first answer the main question of the lesson. Speed or technique first, okay? Generically speaking, we should always put speed and power training first, and then put the technical training after. Let's suppose you make a warm-up, okay? A good warm-up, 10, 15 minutes, you activate your karatecas, your students, your athletes, they are prepared to their best performance. The next thing you should do is include speed and power training, okay? Why? Because it's the skill that we must develop in our karatecas that depends the most on not having fatigue, okay? Speed and power training, each repetition must be made without fatigue, okay? With longer pauses between sets, for example. When I talk about speed and power training, I'm not only talking about gym workouts or rubber bands or plyometrics. It's also included on this, but I also speak about specific technical training where the speed of performance is the main priority. For example, I'm closer to a competition. I'm going to dedicate more time to develop specific power for the Gyakuzuki, the Moashigeri, the displacement from Shikodashi to Zenkutsudashi. It doesn't matter, okay? So I'm also talking about those kind of training. It's specific technique from karate, but when I have the main goal of using those techniques from karate and develop the maximum speed performance of our karatekas, I'm going to include it right after the warm-up, okay? The same thing with reaction speed, for example, okay? If I analyze, if I identify that one karateka of mine is slower than I wished for the next competition or grading exam or etc., if I want to develop his or her reaction speed, he or she must be as fresh as possible, okay, without fatigue, so they don't make so many mistakes. They can stay accurate and fast in the reaction, and that's my priority. But there are exceptions. If I'm talking about technical improvement, something that I already mastered, I already memorized, I'm just going to try to take it to the next level of coordination, technique, efficiency, etc. I would always put it after the speed and power training, because a good speed and power training won't put as much fatigue as you could consider in your karateka's body or mind. Okay, a good and well-designed and evidence-based speed and power training won't put as much fatigue as you believe in your karateka, because that's another problem we have in karate, that most of coaches really don't know how to train and develop speed and power in an optimal and maximized way. Okay, but that's talk for another day. Okay, but if the priority if the decision in terms of technical training is to teach a new skill that may be harder to learn, or even in technical improvement, if it's something that we consider that the athlete really have to improve, I can change this order and put speed and power after that technical training. It's always a matter of priorities. If I consider that my karatekas are fast enough, are powerful enough, and that's not the priority in terms of their development in the next training cycle, I can put the technical training before, because that's where they have to work more. It's what they need to develop more in terms of priorities for the next training cycle. So I will put the priority between both of these skills when they are fresher, right after the warm-up. Okay, so it's always, regardless of having some general principles around this, we always must look to the priority, the main priority, or the main priorities we may have for each training cycle. If it is speed and power, let's go first. If it is technical training, improvement, or learning, it should be first. If we have the same, if we give the same importance to both skills, then I always should put speed and power training first and then technique after. Why? Because if I make 15 minutes of warm-up and 20 minutes more of speed or power training, that may not affect that much the readiness to technical training after. But if I make a 15-minute warm-up and put half an hour of technical training, we have 45 minutes of performance, of training, that might accumulate some fatigue that will be harmful for the speed and power development. In order to make the most out of that training, so we can optimize the most that part of the training, and that's the answer, the final answer that I need you to understand. Okay, in doubt, speed and power training first, but in very specific situations, you give a greater priority to technical training. It must be first, because your karatekas might be fresher to learn a new thing or to improve something that is going wrong. Okay, so this is the first answer. Now let's go to the sticky notes. I have several here. Okay, let's suppose, okay, technical and tactical training compared to basic endurance. The basic endurance is when we dedicate to develop our aerobic capacity. For example, aerobic power is like the foundation, so we can have better performance in training and competition in long term, in terms of recovery, in terms of having more energy available to keep my levels of speed or power or decision, whatever, for a longer period of time. Okay, so in this situation, we always put the basic endurance after the technical or tactical training, especially if we are in a learning phase or improvement phase of something that is very important, endurance always come last. Okay, for example, then let's compare the maximal strength training for those who are athletes and go to the gym and work with heavy loads. Okay, and let's put here hypertrophy, for example. Okay, let's suppose you have athletes that go to the gym, they have that complement to their karate performance, and you must, because they just have, for example, twice a week the chance to go to the gym, you have to mix some several strength types of strength in the same session, and you have to include maximal strength and hypertrophy in the same training session. When I talk about maximal strength training, I'm here talking about the traditional way that everyone uses to develop the motor unit recruitment. Okay, that is the ability of our body to recruit more fibers to make more strength, to produce more strength, and where we work with a load that we can't lift more than 1, 2, 3 times. Okay, so what should I put first? First, I should make maximal strength and then hypertrophy, because the hypertrophy training will negatively affect the training performance of maximal strength training using the traditional way of doing it. But in contrary, that's not going to happen, because maximal strength training will demand, okay, a lot of your body, of course, but will need that your nervous components are really prepared to recruit as many fibers as possible. And the interference of maximal strength training in hypertrophy will be way smaller. So if we have to mix both of them, we should make it this way. Now, let me see other examples. Specific endurance. And for example, technical and tactical training in terms of improving what we already know. Okay, I'm sorry. Specific endurance and technical improvement or tactical improvement is the same thing. Okay, the same principle. Well, generically speaking, we should put the tactical training first, because we must be fresher so we can maintain our best technique and take it to the next level, or understand better the tactical situations that I'm going to perfection. Okay, and endurance is always by default the last part to include in the training session, because it's not affected by the other parts of the training, because they all are accumulating stimulus in terms of endurance. But specific endurance is when I mimic, when I try to put my karatekas to perform a certain amount of effort similar to what they are going to find in the grading exam, in the WKF Kumite bout, in the Kata round, in the karate combat fight. It doesn't matter the type, because specific endurance, as the name says, is always very connected with the type of effort we are preparing our karatekas for. Okay, so let's suppose that I want to know what's the response of my karateka in terms of specific endurance when they are fresh. We end the warm-up, and I want to evaluate, to assess what's the response of my karateka in terms of specific endurance. Let's suppose what's the response of my kata athlete performing a super impei or a Shatanyara Kushanku or any other kata, or performing 3 superimpes with just 1-2 minutes of interval between them, and I want to perceive what's the response of my karateka in terms of specific endurance, as fresh as possible, without fatigue. It's highly plausible to put it right after the warm-up, seeing their performance in terms of specific endurance fresher, okay? Another example, let's suppose that you take a karateka of yours to an MMA fight, okay? And the round lasts a certain amount of time, and you want to see what's their response in terms of endurance, of fatigue management, recovery, etc., in that specific time, with the specific characteristics, very continuous fighting, with ground fighting, striking, etc. You could make it right after the warm-up, so you can have the idea of his or her response. Okay, so in terms of, we always have a general principle for the management of the several variables, the several variables of training in the same training session or day, but there always is or are specific scenarios where we must know how to manage all of them, so we can make the most optimally of each one of the skills we want to develop. Okay, it's very important that you understand that karate is a complex sport, okay, activity. We must manage many variables in order to have success. When we have that characteristic in our activity, in our modality, we must be aware that it's not possible to optimize every skill training at the same time. That's not possible. We always have some interference among the several skills we must develop, okay? I'm not saying that that interference will take to highly negative results. You can also keep evolving, okay, even with some interference from other skills, but you are not maximizing or making the most optimally of some skills. So we must establish priorities for each training cycle according to some evaluation sessions that we make, or by the assessment of the performance of our karatekas in the training sessions or the competition, etc. And we must be flexible and identify as soon as possible, after a certain amount of time in terms of the training cycle, what I need to consider as a priority. You can, of course, we must develop endurance, strength, speed, technique, tactics, etc., etc., etc. But we can identify that some of them are more important for those training cycle, because those skills are more important for the next competition that is near, or because it's some skill that my karateka is not that good and he really must to develop it, to improve it. So we must learn to establish priorities so we can optimize some of the skills in a given training cycle, while keeping other ones in a maintenance level or evolving but not optimally. And then according to the evolution of our karatekas, we start to make some changes in order to build a long-term better karateka athlete or non-athlete, okay? So we're done. I hope you enjoyed the lesson. I hope it was useful for you. Please leave your comments, your questions below. Share the lesson with your karate colleagues if you consider that this is really valuable, so they can manage their sessions better. And subscribe the channel so you can get notified about the new lessons I'm going to send, to launch. I always try to share. I always share, but sometimes I take a little while to do it because this is a one-person project and it's not my entire life. I have a professional life outside Karate Science Academy. So sometimes I take a little bit more time to share the PDFs where I put the summary of each lesson, but I always do it. So go enter our Telegram channel that the link is below in the description, where I share some valuable knowledge and including the PDFs of the lessons I gave for free open access on YouTube, okay? Follow our Instagram, go there. I always put valuable things in terms of training, especially strength and conditioning. That is the main part of the mission of Karate Science Academy. Thank you very much, my friends. See you next week, and anything, just contact me and I answer as soon as possible. Cheers, my friends.